Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name's Jordan Amos. I am the UKI Africa MSP Regional Manager. You're joining us here today to listen to a customer reference call or customer reference case study with the guys from SCC and in particular Steve Smith. Thanks for joining, Steve. Really appreciate you taking time out your busy schedule, which I know is very busy because I'm always trying to get time in your diary. But if you could do a bit of an introduction about yourself and SCC, I'd really appreciate that to get things kicked off.
Thanks, Jordan. So Steve Smith, as you said, so I'm Technology Director for SCC Digital. So I cover off all of our technology strategy, tooling selections, our own intellectual property, and really on the hook for making sure we make the right decisions, which is one of the reasons why we've ended up being a partner of LogicMonitor.
Good man, good man. We like that. What are some of the focuses for you in the MSP space? Where do you currently focus at SCC?
So at the moment, our really big focus is that journey towards autonomous IT. I think that's something that we share with LogicMonitor. So, we've got a lot of work going on in that area at the moment where we've got to take people out of the mix, we've got to become faster, we've got to become more efficient. And LogicMonitor is a huge part of that for us.
Wonderful. And is there particular verticals or industries that you do focus on? What's the sort of split for SCC? Where's your target market?
So, target market really depends on which of our propositions we're working towards. But from our typical cloud managed services, we've got customers ranging from large enterprise all the way through to relatively small SME, covering pretty much all sectors. We've got UK public sector organizations. And again, it was really key to us to have a tool that would fit use cases all the way across there. We had to address the security concerns of our public sector organizations. And you guys have been fantastic working with us to make sure that we could address all those areas of the market.
Oh, good, good. And I think, many people will know who you are and certainly SCC and where your coverage are. And I'm sure they come across you many times. Obviously, there's a bit of a journey here and we're sort of setting the scene right now. But from your perspective, if I can take you back a little bit so that we can give the guys and girls joining this call a bit of an idea about what was your observability strategy before LogicMonitor? What was your monitoring tools? What were you doing? What did that originally look like to get you on the path to realizing that maybe there was a better way?
Right. I'm going to be really honest here, much to my own
Okay.
my
That
own
makes me
challenge.
nervous too.
So in reality, I think it's worth going back. I effectively classify that journey to autonomous IT on a journey, and one of those first stages is getting to unified observability. So when I started this role 3.5 years ago now, on a scale of 1 to 5, we were probably a 2. We had a whole group of tools, everything from Nagios, SCOM, vendor tools. We had a bit of everything everywhere. The only people who could really access the monitoring data were the monitoring team, basically. So we're in a position that we had really fragmented monitoring. We didn't have single coverage. We couldn't get people who needed the information, we couldn't get that information into their hands. So it was pretty obvious as we set out that strategy to move towards autonomous IT that we needed to do something really quite revolutionary, different. So that's where effectively we came up with our initial set of requirements based on not where we wanted to get to as the next step, but where we wanted to get to as the end goal. So we spent a lot of time looking for the right tool, but also the right partner. And that was really, really big part of our decision making on how we were going to change. It was the partner that we were going to work with.
I mean, I think it's always important because we all like to think that things are going to run incredibly smooth and everything's going to be great. but actually the true test of a partnership is when things maybe don't quite go so well, and how we come together to make sure we're overcoming those things. Taking a little bit of a step back again there, and you mentioned what was some of the impacts that you were finding by not having the right tooling? Was it the cost to serve motion for internal, saving money? Was it the fact that you weren't able to go for larger customers? What was some of the impacts that was happening there?
So the real impact was our ability to be able to support customers effectively, our ability to resolve those customer issues quickly and detect them. When we started this journey, we were probably finding that more often than not, it was customers who were telling us that they had an issue, not us in a position to tell them that they had an issue. So, LogicMonitor was a key part and has been able to turn that around. But it was also really important that it gave us a capability to create a new generation of services that added massive value to our customers. So, that's kind of where we were and where we're going.
So dig in a little bit deeper on that comment. When you were picking the partner, when you were reviewing, what did that process look like? I'm sure that many organizations that are joining this call, or MSPs that are joining, are going through potentially similar things to yourself, or what you went through. What does that actually look like from a discovery of different tools? Who did you investigate? What did that look like? How did you come up with that?
So again, we follow the typical Moscow type model, but I say it was key that we built out those requirements for our end goal. Even the things that there's even features in LogicModules that we've not turned on yet because they're still part of our further roadmap. But it was really key to understand what our destination was and make sure that we selected a tool and a partner that was definitely on a similar journey to us. So, we went through scoring lots of other people, not just yourselves. We went from everybody from LogicMonitor, Dynatrace, Datadog, a whole heap of them that we went through, and we very quickly got down to sort of our top three. And on paper, let's be honest, there wasn't a lot to pick from the technology. But what really impressed me about LogicMonitor, I don't want to say this, but our account manager that we've now got is actually very, very good.
I'm sure he will love that. I'm absolutely sure he will love that. This might be a recording of that might be taken, I'm sure.
But the team of people that he was able to bring and put in front of us, and the team of people that we've worked with, every week since we selected you as a tool, have been first class. It's not to say that we've not had challenges, because I'd be, blatantly lying if I said that we hadn't had challenges. But we've always been able to come together and find the right way to move forward, the right solution, a way to get around whatever it was, and we've come out stronger because of it.
No, good. And I think everybody understands that that's part of the course of being in any partnership. You like to think hopefully it is all smooth running, but like I said, sometimes it's the true test is when it's not quite going so well, and you want to make sure that you all come out the right side positively. The big thing that I know that we spoke about previously, and I suppose without putting words into your mouth, the extensibility of the platform is something I know you like, pushing the boundaries. You're always pushing us. How do we do more? How do we do this? Talk to everybody a little bit about that, and what that did for your selection process.
So extensibility is huge to me. The ability to both have you as a partner develop new capabilities for us, but our ability to develop new capabilities ourselves as the market demands was absolutely massive. That concept of LogicModules that we can build to do, basically monitor whatever we need to do, whatever device, whatever configuration, that was really, really powerful for us. And since then, we built all sorts of capabilities, from being able to look up end of life information, support contract information, and bring that all into one place, and the value that that's given us for what we can do going forward. And I think it'll be very interesting as we move into that Edwin conversation. That extra data that we've got in the platform should add enormous value. And that was something that wasn't available across all of the technologies that when we were reviewing it. It was something that really stood out from the LogicMonitor platform.
And does that help you make money? Is it helping you save money, reducing risk, or is it across all three of those?
It's really across all three of them. The fact is that when we take on a new customer, being able to do all of these checks automatically, being able to protect ourselves, being able to reduce the cost of delivery, being able to automate lots of investigation that previously we would have had to have humans doing is incredibly powerful. And I think you get value out of a tool like LogicMonitor depending on how much effort you're willing to put into it. Because I don't think we've realized all the value yet that we're going to get out of the tool. But one of my teams is absolutely dedicated to bringing out every millimeter of value we can get out of the tool, and probably driving your technology teams absolutely insane in the process.
No, we absolutely welcome it. I can speak on their behalf, I'm sure. But no, I appreciate that. I think sometimes we can look at technology and think technology is cool or good or does something, but I think actually true value is those outcomes that you're trying to achieve. When you think about that journey that you went on from, I suppose you've made your selection choice now. You've chosen LogicMonitor. We've beaten the other vendors in the market. We've proven on partnership, technology, future direction, and obviously business value that we're driving from it. Talk us now a little bit about your journey from the implementation to the transformation. What were some of the quick wins or early improvements that you noticed after you started rolling out or rolled out LogicMonitor to replace some of those tools?
So the initial value was typically from having that single view. We were no longer, I think the term is swivel chair that we often talk about. So the fact that as an engineer now, first liner or engineer in one of the teams can go into a tool and investigate the whole environment without having to go through each of those devices was incredibly transformational for those teams. But that was really just the start. As we onboarded more technologies, we learned more lessons, then came the really important part, was the transformation. So it became really important that we set up a lot of feedback loops, not just for noise reduction, but for actual value to the operations team. So where we had a major incident in a customer's environment that we didn't pick up through monitoring for whatever reason, we created loops that enabled us to go back and develop something to ensure that we did pick up that major incident before it happened. That kind of goes back to that extensibility. There's no way that any tool is going to cover everything 100% out of the box on day one, but having that ability to extend that coverage time and time again so we can learn every lesson. I think talking with some of my colleagues at other companies, the value of an MSP is that we've seen more things go wrong than any individual customer has seen go wrong. So being able to evidence that we learn the lessons each time something happens and we build that into our feedback loops, we can add huge amounts of value to our customers.
And is that so? When you think about the outcomes that you've achieved from that, of course, you've got the visibility across your internal teams, and I suppose that's more of a cost to serve motion of how you're reducing the time spent moving between different windows or portals or whatever it may be. You've got that single source of truth, single pane of glass. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry I used it. How far in are we? And that's come out. Apologies. But the other side of that is now impacting your ability to reduce customer churn, be proactive with your services, look at your SLAs. And Is that driving what your future acquisition would then look like for some of these? You talk about transformation. Is that supporting, acquiring new customers, and how you're driving that?
Yeah, being able to show customers the lessons that we've learned and the constant feedback, is a real differentiator in the market. I think too many organizations pick tools before they really understand what they want to use the tool for. It's a big part of our DNA now that we define what service or what offering we want to make out to our customers, and then technology is chosen to support that offering. We don't
Right.
pick technology and then try and wrap a service around it. Otherwise, we're the same as everybody else in the market. And again, going back to my extensibility, that's where LogicMonitor is great, because we're in a position that we can imagine whatever service or offering we want to create, and we've got the tools in the toolbox to create that offering in the market.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those, there's a lot of MSPs in the market, right? And it's that being able to differentiate, not just differentiate, but also at the same time be able to deliver on what you're saying that you're going to deliver is key. I think we all know that, winning new business is hard. So keeping business is important, and obviously giving you that ability to then potentially expand out and use that extensibility to do cross-sell, upsell motions, I'm sure is also part of the strategy. Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair. And, again, I think if we go back to underpinning what we go to market with is a portfolio of services that cover everything from core infrastructure services all the way to application monitoring and application support. So again, having a single tool that we can bring in all of that observability into a single place has let us be able to differentiate ourselves, but also create a model to allow upsell. Because, as you said, winning net new business is really, really hard. So being in a position where we can incrementally take new services, new capabilities to our customers, both is a great revenue source for us, but also makes the customers intrinsically more sticky. So it makes it easier to keep those customers.
Yeah, and I can imagine, I mean, we're talking really now business impact and how we're driving profitability and growth, which I think from being a salesperson myself and probably knocking on some of the doors of some of the people that are joining this, I think one of the things that you always look at is what is our ability, yes, of course, to win new business, but ultimately be able to improve on that and grow that wallet share, I suppose, if you want to use that description, and be able to make sure that we're taking on more services, being more embedded in that business and how we deliver that. If I can go at it a different angle here with you, could you share a specific instance where LM Envision has maybe helped you protect a client relationship or profit margin? Or I know we all have those situations, but can you maybe share for the guys an area where that may have happened?
So we run our own private cloud platform. It's spread across multiple locations. Generally very stable platform, good performance. But in the not recent past, we had an event on there that caused a decent sized outage for quite a number of our customers. Thanks to Envision, we picked up the exact impact to our customers within seconds, and we actually managed to identify the root cause of the outage and get the environment back up and stable within 8 minutes. That's pretty damn amazing. If we go back to traditional observability, we actually ended up even I reckon we'd have had probably 2,500 alerts that would have come through into ITSM, which would have just been completely meaningless. We'd have been going around every device in the environment looking for what the cause of the issue was.
And I'm assuming somebody's got to then go close all of those
Yeah,
tickets. And it's the triage time. And is this real? Is it not real? Or
yeah, I suppose all those were real at the time. If But as I said, the fact that we got to root cause and got it fixed within 8 minutes, absolutely minimising the impact to our customers, and saving us a small fortune. You know, in traditional world, we'd have ended up with tens of engineers investigating that issue, going through every alert, going through all the devices. You know, it could have been hours of investigation for tens of engineers. 8 minutes, one engineer, impact mitigated. You know, I can't ask for too much more of you.
I know you do. On the flip side of that, what and I know a lot of people will probably have scenarios that have joined today that will probably have similar scenarios or stories that they would have had. From your perspective, when looking at the business impact there, you know, is that looking at SLA breaches potentially if that wasn't found? Is that looking at, you know, quite detrimental impact to your brand because you have a very strong brand? What was when you were feeding back internally what you'd done and what you'd prevented or certainly resolved and how quickly you did? What was the business looking at it like?
Damage mitigation, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know, again, if we go back and we take that scenario, there is no way we would have met SLA. There's no way we would have avoided service credits on a situation like that. You know, overall, you know, that would have been an incredibly damaging event to SCC. So having the technology to help us mitigate all of that quickly, effectively, and cost effectively is really, really important.
So if and of course that's a key area for a lot of the people that would have joined. From your perspective, you know, the ability to meet SLAs or reduce that downtime, what are the ways is LogicMonitor supporting that? Because obviously that's a key area for you and your metrics.
So the big part is we've been able to much more shift from a reactive model to operating in a proactive model. So getting the knowledge, information, the alert into an engineer before it becomes a service impacting event is changed the game for people. You know, I still talk to a lot of customers that are at the start of their observability journey, and it's one of the reasons why I do get to quite often take them in as a customer when we've been talking to them. But they're all in a position where their users are telling them that they've got an outage. You know, I was speaking to a customer very recently, and that was their exact message. You know, it can't be their cut. They're in the position their customers are telling them that they've got an issue, and we've really been able to turn that on its head and make sure that we're informing customers that we've prevented something from happening rather than them telling us it has happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think the industry as a whole has been talking about reactive, proactive, predictive monitoring and event management for a very long time. So actually seeing that happening and you delivering on that is crucial.
But again, and I think the tooling is a great part of it, but a lot of it is about how you change your processes. How
Okay.
do you change your culture so that people are looking for the proactive side of it? You know, I think, and one of the things I say is that sometimes engineers do enjoy their Superman moments. They
Yeah,
like being
we all
able
like
to. They like
that.
putting their.
Salespeople, believe it or not, salespeople love their moment too, I can assure you.
But if you get to that point though, where you're putting on your cape, you know, you've really got to look back at yourself and go, could we have done something differently? Could we have learned a lesson to make sure that I can leave my cape on the back of the door this time? And that's been one of the biggest journeys that we've gone on over the last 3.5 years is no longer celebrating those moments when somebody's put the cape on. We're actually celebrating the moments when engineers have prevented something from happening. That's
Yeah.
far more important to both me and our customers.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I love how you phrased that as well. I think that's so. We completely understand it. There's actually a book, and the name of the book completely escapes me right now. But it certainly talks about that hero, that hero view. So I think if I can ask you another question around that, because I know other organizations that I've spoken to, that my team speak to, when they look at LogicMonitor, it's also having a view as to what potentially enables them to do with the type of customers. I asked you at the start, and you spoke about, you have that SME all the way up to enterprise. Where does LogicMonitor fit for you, and is it enabling you to go after those larger organizations? And if it is, why?
I think critically, it probably isn't really changed the dynamic of the customers we could go after. But what it's enabling us to do is change the cost of serve for different organizations. So I think there's always been historically in MSPs a linear curve between the amount of resources that you needed to service any given amount of customers, however you want to measure that. And LogicMonitor has really helped to start to bend that curve. So where we'd win a big customer, historically we'd add significant headcount. We're not having to react in the same way. We're able to manage that far more effectively. We're able to do more things automatically. We're able to bring customers in and check what state their environment is straight away. So as soon as the first step of us onboarding a customer these days is to bring them into LogicMonitor, and that instantly gives us a view as to whether we've got something that's good, bad, or worse. And the level of protection that gives us is fantastic. Being able to remediate issues before they come into operational service is absolutely a game changer. Again, going back historically, our big challenge would be you'd win a new customer and you spend the first 18 months having daily, weekly major incidents because you didn't know all the issues that were in the environment. So having early visibility is just bliss.
Wow. It's I think it would be silly of me not to reference the point that we also took over Catchpoint recently, that's even extending that visibility even further, that I know you and I will speak about soon in person. But I think I appreciate you giving that insight. I know there's a lot of people on the call that will, or that's joined the webinar today, that will sit there and go, "Oh, it's great that LogicMonitor say this to me all the time." It's lovely to actually hear it from somebody that's saying it without me pushing you to. If I can just sort of, appreciate we wanted to make sure that we kept this in time so that people could ultimately get on with the rest of their day. But just a couple of more things, if I could. I suppose the first thing is whenever we're dealing, there'll be a lot of new MSPs or people looking to drive new services. When you think of best practice, when you think of other MSP leaders, what are the sort of things that you think of, or what guidance would you give around observability to those organizations, those people, those leaders?
I think we've touched on it a few times so far, but it's create feedback loops. That to me is the single most important thing that you can do. You will not catch everything on day one. You will not catch everything on day 365, but what you've got to be able to measure is the lessons that you've learned over those 365 days. Learn constantly, enrich what you've got, and just keep learning. And don't leave your processes the same. Change them, try different things. You'll be amazed what works. Again, that comes back to those feedback cycles.
And even if it's a little bit painful, I suppose, initially, it's worth it in the long run to make sure that especially if you're looking at scalability, growth, type of customers that you're attracting or trying to attract. No, I appreciate that. Great guidance there. what are LogicMonitor and SCC doing next? What's interesting for you? You've obviously got a bit of a sneak peek into the roadmap and things that are coming up and whatnot. We've got to be a bit careful here because there'll be people joining that maybe haven't got those in place. But obviously, out of the things that is in public knowledge, what's next for us working together that you're going to be working with your AE on?
I think it's really two big things for me. I think we've piloted what we're going to be doing with LM logs.
Okay.
Again,
Yeah, I'm ready.
we want to really roll out LM logs much wider than we have today, both from a revenue stream tied to some of those additional services, but also looking at it from a cost reduction perspective. From early POC testing, LM logs lets us even bring down that MTTR even further. It lets us get to root cause even quicker. So that's really key thing that's on our roadmap. And you will be pleased to know, Jordan, we are still looking at Edwin. It is still on the list.
Good. I'll send you over the order form so you can get it done.
But yeah, Edwin is definitely part of our journey. I think we've worked out where it's going to fit into the model. You still got a bit of technology you've got to deliver for me before I can roll it out. But hey,
Absolutely.
But again, that again goes back to our partnership. We tested it, we've talked about what will work, what won't work in our environment for us, and you guys have come on the journey with us. So, that's really, really strong for me.
No, I really appreciate that. And I think, Edwin is such a huge part of our future and the autonomous IT journey that of course it's going to be central point to many that have joined the call. There'll be many that don't know what Edwin AI is. So I'd encourage you to reach out to me or a member of the team to come and have a look at what that looks like. But I think again, you've mentioned, throughout this process, some key areas really, which is that how do we save money, how do we make money, and how do we de-risk, and whether that's a cost to serve motion through your engineer ratios to how you scale with your customers, all the way to the product development and building new services to drive revenues, all the way through to reducing that churn risk or making sure that you're not being hit by credits, which I know hurt any MSP. So completely ignoring LogicMonitor altogether, what's next for Steve and what's next for the SCC team?
That's a very interesting question. So I think going right back to the beginning of the call, I talked about our journey for autonomous IT.
Yeah.
So I hope in the next 3 months, next quarter, we will have that journey to autonomous IT and self-healing and all of those things really in flight. I think our customers will be benefiting from that this quarter. The team are really focused on it. I'm really focused on it. And I know most of the other MSPs that are on the call are probably very focused on that as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a journey that we're all on. I'll be honest, I hope to beat you all to it.
No. I'm sure, and I'm sure there's many that are saying the same thing back to you. Look, we look forward to seeing what that looks like, and maybe a part 2 to this to maybe catch up with you later on in the year and see how you're getting on and how we're getting on as our partnership might be ahead. Look, Steve, really appreciate you taking your time. I know you're a big advocate. I know you push the boundaries all the time, but we generally do appreciate your partnership. So thanks for jumping on. To everybody joined, thank you again. We have tried to keep it within some time, but I hope you found that useful and you can understand why organizations like SCC are choosing LogicMonitor as a partner, but also what they're doing to push the boundaries and the limits and to drive success for their businesses and their ultimately their relationships with their customers. So please reach out if you have any questions. Be happy to answer them, and I'm sure Steve wouldn't mind if you connected with him either. But really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, and we'll speak again soon.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for attending the webinar.
Good man.